So
But yeah,
unfortunately,
She
She-Hulk.
Hulk. Yeah,
The reason
She-Hulk.
it's unfortunate, why is it an unfortunate subject, Ollie?
Well, for me, it's the fourth wall breaking, which even though she does in the comics and she did before Deadpool, I just hate it because it destroys the illusion of a story. I don't care. Like even Emergency Orson tried to redeem the subject for me a little bit by saying like a character that does that proves themselves as the most powerful character in that universe because something like a world-ending event, like they compared it to like the Celestial coming out in Eternals, like emerging from the planet, and it's like she could just stop it to like make herself a sandwich, or just be like, well, this is not going to happen. Like, we're going to live. We're going to fight this. Like, putting a pause on the continuity of the universe just to like enter like the Matrix version of that makes you the most powerful character. It's like I guess so, but I don't know. I had like a way of thinking about it the other day that kind of gave it a bit of a redeeming quality, but where the universe is real and like entering like breaking the fourth wall is just going into a reality that made that reality, I guess. Like that reality is a fiction in another reality, like another universe, and that's where she's capable of entering from because it's almost like she's been inserted in there into that reality with the mindset of knowing that that reality is a fiction in another reality she comes from, and she's able to kind of be a bit of both worlds in that reality. Like I think that's kind of a satisfying way of looking at it. Obviously, they won't reference it as such, but I hate breaking the fourth wall. It just ruins the illusion of the story whatsoever. Because when someone else shows that they have control over the continuity of the story within the story, it's like everything in the Infinity Saga is redundant. Everything in the Multiverse Saga feels a bit like threatening wise redundant. It's like, unless they were to then like make a saga afterwards, phase 7 through 9, which is like the fourth wall breaking saga, and they like it's all about like She-Hulk and Deadpool and any character that breaks the fourth wall and whatnot, and it's like the threat of destroying the whole fiction of realities, like not only the MCU reality but all the multiverses in that reality, as well as even like the real world in general. Like, and real world threatening events are happening at the same time, like COVID and whatnot in this within the story, or like something that Marvel's done, like something that they can just add as an original concept that's enjoyable. I don't know how they can raise the stakes after the multiverse saga. So that's an interesting part. But yeah, it destroyed it makes
Well,
kind of
did you
like
like
Thanos'
Cherry?
threat redundant.
I know Cherry's not MCU,
I
but like,
loved Cherry.
did
If
the
you're
fourth
referring to
wall's
the
not
if you're
like
referring to the narration being a fourth wall break, then I don't really consider it as such because there's nothing within the context of the story besides the audio that describes what's going on. So no, I don't consider narration a fourth wall break because it could just be him reminiscing it to himself or another character, and we just
yeah?
don't know that specific context. So
You generally just don't like fourth wall breaks.
no, I don't like fourth wall breaking. Like, it's all right for Deadpool because I think Deadpool's so off the beat. It's kind of like, and he doesn't do it as drastically as like the annoying
Well,
thing is,
Deadpool is
yeah,
kind of just meme the film. Like, it
yeah.
is kind of just like
Like,
bloopers of
I
the
think when they did it in the She-Hulk comics, but the problem is I don't think her character's even compelling enough in those comics. Like, I think it wasn't until fucking move my camera with my foot, brilliant. I don't think it wasn't until Deadpool came along that they kind of justified being able to do it, like as a character trait, and I don't know. It's like I didn't really even like it in Deadpool really that much, to be honest. But I think Deadpool makes it look plausible compared to She-Hulk because the final episode of She-Hulk, where she actually goes into Disney Plus, jumps into Marvel's Assembled, and then starts talking to the makers, and then they make this like Kevin robot as like a spoof on Kevin Feige. I was just like, this is what I hate about fourth wall breaking because they've completely destroyed the illusion of the story, and they even use it worse to destroy the illusion of the story by actually using it to implement change in the story by getting rid of half the plots of the story to actually have it wrap up and end. It's not a case of you see some massive like She-Hulk battle, and I was just like, oh, they completely trolled us with this show and it's shit. Like,
That's what was the main problem. Like, besides side problems that I would personally consider main problems, like that is technically the main problem, because the main problem of the story is, yeah, like using, it's kind of just the definition of bad writing there,
Yeah.
where you're like literally you're just making a meme out of MCU and changing the story,
Fourth
like
wall
by doing
breaking
that.
shouldn't be a character trait, and not one that imposes interest. Like, it's almost like a way of just trying to make a character funny in a way you wouldn't expect. That kind of, if it doesn't do service to any other element of the story, and then, don't do it. Like, if you can't make She-Hulk, like in the comics, if you couldn't make She-Hulk compelling without having her break the fourth wall to be funny, or just to, add to a point, and don't do it. Maybe have like her narrate to herself or something like that, or it just ruins the aspect of the universe. Like, I don't mind Deadpool doing it, because he never did it to that extent. He never did it to a point where he's jumping out of the film to, go into a streaming service or anything like that. He was just sort of like, it was almost like if you were to take out all the cuts where he breaks the fourth wall, he usually does it independently as well. She-Hulk did it in a very like, in the presence of another character. Deadpool barely did it in the presence of another character, or at least not on the screen. Like, all of his fourth wall breakings would usually be like close-up shots of him, and it's like that necessarily couldn't be considered canon. It's like you could cut all those and then just have Deadpool as the film, and he's basically the exact same, and he just doesn't break the fourth wall, and it would still be really funny, it would still be really compelling, still be a decent story. She-Hulk does it in such a way that, and even with it infecting the plot, means that you can't watch it without needing to watch the fourth wall break, because otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Well, the trouble is, here's the thing, right? She-Hulk was trying to do what Deadpool did. Deadpool did with fourth wall breaking, which is what makes Deadpool funny. Is like the fourth wall breaks is what makes Deadpool funny, and that's what they're trying to do with the fourth wall breaking in She-Hulk. But the trouble with it was the trouble with it is that it just didn't work, because she's kind of being unironic about it, and she's like There's
a few times where she does it, and it's like, okay. Like, I think in episode 1, she kind of gets away with it, because it's like her talking to the audience, but it's not.
It's just so forced, in my opinion.
That's not too bad.
Like,
but she didn't need to do that. They could have just like.
Well, it's just so forced, and also
narration could fourth wall breaking narration is better. Like, the whole idea of her
narration's fine.
Like, because it helps to explain to the audience what's going on. It's like, so you're probably thinking like, how did I get to this point? And then they cut to the scene of her within the car crash with Bruce Banner and like whatnot. And I was like, okay, that's understandable. That's doable.
It's like even the scenes where she's in the car talking to the thing, and she's like, "Don't worry, you thinking there's a cameo of this and that? Don't worry, like it's
like, I know you're excited to see Wong." And it's like, well, yeah, just fucking show us Wong. We don't want to see you. You don't fucking like you. Like, why did they make a show of you? It should have just been a movie.
But here's the thing.
Get all the shit out in one, rather than like dollops. Like, rather than the diarrhea of this episodic bollocks. Like, just make it a movie.
The fourth wall breaks were also bad, not even for the main reason being that they're fourth wall breaks, for the purpose that they were also influencing, and I'm going to be cancelled for this in the future, but I'm going to be blunt about it, the feminism, or the anti-feminism actually, because it is a very woke film. It's a very woke series.
Yeah, see, you even want to call it a film because it kind of works better as one. Because this is the problem, like, yeah, I think the only... it just doesn't work.
It doesn't work anyway. And,
it just doesn't work.
Going into the character, it's just like... It's just anti-feminist, because obviously... And the reason I'm saying anti-feminist is because, like... It's not what feminism needs. You're actually trying to be... If you're trying to make a film empowering women, make them realistic. Don't make this like fake, amazingly strong because of somehow some impossible magic that doesn't exist. Like, you need... Like, Chris She-Hulk's flaws. Like, even the first episode, she's just immediately... Boom, she's better than Bruce Banner. And, like, how? And she was even in the first episode, they're literally really fucking digging into the like, apparently empowering women, because it was straight on going into saying that, you know, she deals with more stress, and she's literally talking to Hulk in that moment. Like, you don't know how to handle you don't know how to handle anger. You're literally Hulk. You're literally saying that to Hulk. Like, that you couldn't be saying that to any other person and it make like be any more like crazy. But yeah, the whole trouble with it is that her character had no flaws. That like, she immediately was just there
But she
was no
did. She
setbacks.
wasn't able to, like, you know, as a character, she wasn't able to accept herself. But they don't make that as a.
Yeah, like the trouble. I mean, obviously she had these. Like, obviously it was more of a mental struggle for her trying to overcome. Well, that's the thing. They weren't making it about like being the Hulk is all about like literally all of what Bruce went through, and they made it completely like irrelevant to what it needed to have been. It needed to have been her trying to become the Hulk and facing the issues regarding dealing with. If anything, it would have made more sense to have it be 10 times harder for her to overcome the side effects of what being a Hulk is, which is literally having to enrage yourself to become Hulk, and that, in theory, should be 10 times harder. So that would have been the goal. That would have been the
I
inciting
think
message.
it's the problem of
instead,
they basically made the same character, but they just gender swapped it, and it's like they were like, well, we don't want to have to.
that would have been even
We
better,
don't
though,
want to have to go through the same arc that we've just done with Bruce Banner, but we need to in the first episode. So, like, it's kind of the Loki thing where it's like you've picked up from Loki at the end of Avengers, so he's got a lot of character growth since then through the Dark World to Ragnarok to Infinity War, and we now need to basically give him that whole character arc within the first episode, and then we can just sort of see the progression of his character from that period, from episode 2 onwards. So, like, the first, like, 2 episodes of the show is really, like, sort of getting into that place where he's had the arc through the Dark World, he's had the arc through Ragnarok, he's had the arc through Infinity War, because he's watched all of it back for the clips. He understands his history now. So, like, he knows how things are going to play out, how they're going to end and whatnot. So he's come to, like, accept that within the first 2 episodes. So now he's on a new path. Like, he writes his own destiny now, as he says in the last episode. With She Hulk,
yeah.
And that was a good way of taking it. But with She Hulk, the problem is that they didn't even really give her that. They could have done that in the first episode. Like, they could have for the first couple episodes, they could have, like, given her Banner's arc throughout, like, you know, the Incredible Hulk to all the Avengers films to Thor Ragnarok as well. Like, you know, in terms of, like, character growth and whatnot throughout the first couple episodes, and then just sort of picked up with her on a present day spectrum. But they didn't really do that. They just sort of, like, instead they made her, they kind of already established her, but they didn't, like, give her any, as you say, flaws, any faults. Like, in real life as well, and this is kind of a bit off the topic, but, like, you know, a person who craves love and is ghosted by people and, you know, isn't appreciated for who they are by other people and whatnot, like, you know, their biggest problem is needing to learn to love themselves. And obviously she's obsessed with dating apps and all that sort of thing. You know, like, in real life, like, I know this is fiction, so I'll probably get a bit backlash for this, but in real life, like, you know, that there's a lesson to be learned there. Learn to love and appreciate yourself. And it's like, I didn't feel like she learned that. I feel like that didn't really change. It was just a case of she's impatient. She's just going to wait until she gets a boyfriend. Oh, Matt Murdock came along, a character we like, that we know. The only fucking reason we watched the show, you know, in all honesty, for a lot of people, as well as being able to see email Blonsky, the Abomination again, at a couple points, and, you know, cameos from Wong, and just to see how shit the show was, I guess. You know, the only fucking reason people watch the show. He comes along, and then they get together, and it's like, you know, what she learned from this? Oh, just keep fighting and keep pining until someone just comes along. Well, no, because you haven't learned to love yourself there. Like, you've learned to accept that you're She-Hulk, but you don't, and you've even used it in your dating profile, but you don't love She-Hulk. You haven't learned to love She-Hulk. You haven't learned to love who you are as a person, because you're just pining over love. Like, I think episode 7 is like the strongest like example of that real life lesson that hasn't been implemented in the show, because it's just a case of she's just obsessed with dating sites. And I think that's also a problem as well, because you don't see that in many of the shows. It's always like the female show about the female character. The story of love comes up a lot. Like, you know, you don't see it in all the stories about male characters. But I've noticed that as well. Like,
Even though it's exactly the same
it's
in
the
life.
exact same in life. Like, you know, sometimes I even look back on like my own considerations with love life, and I think like, you know, and this is not my opinion of it. This is only because films portray it so much, and I think this is like stereotypically, this is such a female thing to think about or look at, and it's like it's not. It's both. But the problem is, in the media, in films and TV, like women always get the spotlight within what, like a woman's arc is always related to a love story. Like, you know, She Hulk, Bridget Jones, fucking even Miss Marvel, like a few episodes of that, like really emphasize the fact that she's interested in guys and like looking for love and whatnot. Like, I think Captain Marvel was the only one that didn't really focus on it, or hasn't focused on it as of yet. Like, to my knowledge, like, but all the other female characters have had a like love as a strong part of their story. Like, and what's worse is
It's all about a
it's
relationship.
always
thing,
about
isn't
a
it?
romantic relationship with a guy. I think Valkyrie has been lucky as well, because she hasn't really had much of an arc with that. It's been mentioned and implied, like, and she's come out as either lesbian or bisexual. I think they had to cut the scene from Ragnarok for stupid reasons. Like, even though I don't see why, because we're at times where that's accepted. But like, they mentioned it in Love and Thunder, like she lost her girlfriend in battle. But they haven't really focused on that subject for her. But bring in Lady Thor, and what? She's all over Thor. So, you know, bring almighty Thor, Jane Foster.
Here's also
It's
another
just
point
stuff.
about She-Hulk that probably people will argue that I'm coming across as sexist, but I would argue it's actually sexist in the first place, is that there is technically only one so-called enemy in the entire series that isn't actually really an enemy at all, that is a woman. And
Titania.
Yeah, every single enemy is a man, and every good person is a woman. And that, kind of by definition, is sexist, because there was no bad women.
Well, Titania
Titania
is a villain, and she is a She-Hulk villain in the comics, and
Yeah.
I think there's a rumor that she's going to be in the Thunderbolts film going forward, and she is a villain actually. So yeah, I don't want to say
suppose so.
I hate to say this, but you were wrong. You were wrong in that.
99%
But
of
yes,
them, though,
I get what
anyway.
you mean. Like,
Yeah.
she's one.
'Cause
Like, they don't
not
do
even
it too often.
necessarily all the villains.
They don't do female
but
villains
it's
too
just
often.
like,
And I know that
no.
they wanted to make. They wanted to add a
just a
female.
portrayal as well.
They had this
Like-
problem in both Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3, where they wanted to. I think there was a rumor that they wanted to make the Mandarin female. They wanted to have a more female prominent Iron Man villain from the comics in both 2 and 3, but they chose against it because female action figures don't sell, and that's why they chose against it, because they expect, you know, a male demographic audience to buy the merchandise, because they consider it a male film because it's got a male lead. It's about a male superhero. You know, violence. Apparently, women don't like violence and all that sort of shit. Like, you know, like back in the times of like the late 2000s, early 2010s, that on a standpoint of a media company, like understanding their audience and, you know, whatnot, that was the case. That's understandable. But now, it's everybody, so you can't like go into it thinking that way. And it's kind of the case of there probably is action figures of her coming, like not She-Hulk, but Titania, like in the future, like, you know, if she's in Thunderbolts, or, you know, bootleg Lego from like the international companies called Zing and whatnot, KP Flops and whatnot, Bricks and what are they fucking called? All the various places basically. Like, they'll probably have like a variant figure of Titania from the show at some point. I didn't really like her character that much, because I just didn't like it because I don't like her sass. I don't like her attitude or her sass. Like, in some ways she was funny, and like other times, like, she was alright. But it would have been better for her to really been the main villain of the show properly. Like, she got introduced at the end of episode 1 from, like, without any logic as to why she was there, and then got her ass beaten to her, like, in the space of, like, less than a minute. And that was just the end of the episode. And I was like, okay, well, what's happened here? Why is this happening?
But then again, if you've made it this far in this episode and you do like She-Hulk somehow, then more the power to
Again,
you.
this is all opinion. It's not fact, but it's just
Yes,
like,
completely, yeah.
it's just
Right.
how we perceive what the media industry is like
And
these
how a
days.
lot of people. But regardless, if you enjoyed it, then
Great
Great.
for you. I hope you.
we're glad
As much
you
as I
enjoyed
hate
it.
the number 8, I actually liked episode 8 of the show more than any others.
Brilliant.
Like, I liked episode 7 as well. Like, when I rewatched Miss Marvel, it wasn't as bad as the first time. When I rewatched She-Hulk, it wasn't as bad as the whole overall show. It wasn't as bad as it was the first time. But there will always be episodes I prefer for specific reasons. Like, I didn't like the first episode with her being trained by Hulk was good. It was a good opening episode, but just her as a character is not someone I can tolerate very much. Episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Episode 7, amazing. I think that was pretty good, but that was because I like Emil Blonsky. Him, like, overall in that series was probably what kept me going for, like, episodes 2 and 3. As for, like, and then doing the whole, like, yeah, they had that whole, like, villain, like, sitting down, talking, chat room thing. They had Man-Bull from the Daredevil comics, whatnot. And speaking of Daredevil, episode 8, phenomenal. Loved that. And for the reasons everybody... Brilliant! Mike's gone off.
It loves you.
It loves you.
Yeah. And then episode 8. Hate the number 8, but loved it regarding this show because Daredevil turns up. And, it's kind of the whole reason everyone watched the show. And that proved to be worth it completely. He has the awesome yellow and red suit. So yeah, I was very satisfied with that episode. Liked his cameo in 9, because obviously I just liked the character in general. Didn't like the fact that because obviously she had to break the fourth wall, he kind of just came out of nowhere. Just dropped from the sky out of nowhere. So I don't know what memory he's going to have regarding the context of how he just ended up coming out of nowhere. But they obviously got it accurate about him wearing the yellow and red suit during the daytime, which is what he did. Fucking loop.
I just don't think that likes to
It's
loop.
not like to loop at all. It's because I've not programmed it into the TV. It's just through the I've looped it on the computer on the
But you have
laptop.
to use the
but I've
remote
not,
and choose.
well, for some
loop
reason my
settings
remote's
on
not
TV.
even fucking working, so I don't know why that's happening. And yeah, just
Regardless.
regardless.
Yeah, She-Hulk is She-Hulk. And
no,
it's,
She-Hulk is sheet. Is sheet.
It
It's
is.
shit.
We hope you like it if you did,
Yeah.
but reviews are reviews.
If you
but
did, good on you.
it's,
But also, if you did, get a life and get a better show to watch.
that's
yeah.
our views on it anyway, because it's just it could have been so good though. Like every show can be amazing, but it just it is what it is.
Yeah.
But